Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to the very first edition of Pop Culture Retro Podcast, a podcast where we're going to take a look back at all things retro from going on, I guess, from the 50s on and anything from our childhoods. And I am one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, and you know my co-host very well, but let him introduce himself. Hello, Ike.
Hey, yeah, Ike Eisenmann here. So fun to be doing this show with Jonathan. I think we're going to have a great time, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it.
Yes, well, for our first, I guess, episode edition, we picked a very fun little thing, and that's something that's going to be in your backyard. We decided to talk about 70s sci-fi movies. And the purpose of this, we decided that we're going to do the top 10 movies of each of us, why we like them, and what's our just missed the cut, as well as one that we think is overrated. And how did you find going through the list and going through the movies?
Well, just doing a search for them. First of all, if you're just relying on your own memory, you don't remember as many sci-fi films as actually were released in the 70s. There was quite a lot and a huge range of kind of, I don't know, styles within science fiction that I found exciting to take another look at, and some things I didn't necessarily consider science fiction, but kind of qualify, which I just thought was fun. But there was a lot, and paring it down to 10 was a little tough, and I've got mine in order. I think you might be surprised, or I don't know, at my number one, but dying to get.
If you're saying that, I'm already shocked already. Yeah. if it's not going to be the one, but
yeah, I don't know. It's of course we're playing with subjectivity here, but I have certain things about science fiction that I really love. And I look for those things, and I will say that, of course, through that entire decade, and I have to bounce back to the 60s because 2001 is my favorite film, period, let alone favorite science fiction piece. And so I was really I had that film impressed upon me from a very young age. 7 years old, I saw it in the theaters, and that became the standard, of course, for every other one that came after that. So I was always chasing after the hyper real science fiction films, and had to loosen up my expectations when it came to some of the movies I went to see, because all the ones on my list, even the ones that didn't make the cut, I saw in the theater going all the way back. So I was seeing these films in the theater in the 70s, and then of course re-experiencing them in their subsequent formats. But yeah, so my bar is strangely high in different ways, but there's some of them.
A couple of questions for you. Is this your favorite genre? I mean, science fiction is your favorite genre, period?
I think absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Because it's in a way, it's the most difficult genre to really do a good job at, because they're generally, when it comes to movies, they're very expensive. It costs a lot of money to create these completely different worlds. And when something new comes along that hasn't been done before, hasn't been seen, and is unexpected, they're very hard to get made, period. I mean, no matter what you've got attached to something like that. So when and a number of these, of course, were breakout films, they didn't come out of nowhere, but they were brand new in terms of their approach to the genre. And it was tremendously exciting, and always is to me, when something new comes along that you just don't expect to see, and it takes you for a really good ride. So yeah, bottom line, that's my wordy answer to the question.
Yeah, well, all right, so let's go. We'll go into the top 10. We'll go back, from 10 to 1. We'll each give our number 10s, why we like them, and we'll count down. I'm curious to see how many we have in common. And I think yours are, I think mine really picked up in the 80s, that, but I love some 70s sci-fi, and I'm curious to see how many we have in common. I think yours are going to be more, obscure than mine, I have a feeling. Because I know probably the ones that were all mainstream. But anyway, you want to start with your number 10?
Yeah. The Stepford Wives.
Good one. Good movie.
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah. It was so creepy. It was so freaking creepy when it first came out. And it was written by Ira Levin, who wrote Rosemary's Baby. And of course, Rosemary's Baby is like the great horror film of all time. He seemed to have a way of creating a potentially, even though it's a ridiculous concept, of having, building robot wives to supplant or to replace humans. It is such an intriguing idea that a group of misogynistic men would actually get together and say, I want to build a better reality. And they all say, yeah,
right. Yeah, well, let's do it. Right.
I mean, I'm on board.
Right,
and I just, and that was so unsettling, and it's still such an unsettling idea. So, for those reasons, I found it compelling. And of course, it's got a super creepy ending, much like Rosemary's Baby had a super creepy ending. It does not end well. And generally speaking, I like those kinds of endings for these stories.
There are a lot of those endings in sci-fi, by the way, and a lot of the classic sci-fi movies. There are a lot.
That's very true. Well. Yeah.
Yes. So, but all right. So I will give my number 10, and I'm going to preface it. And I was debating whether to include it because it's not. But yes, my number 10 is Escape to Witch Mountain. I was wondering if we should put a thing beforehand saying no, we can't include this movie. But I went through all the movies, and there were some ones that I left out, and I'm going to say why. And I'm not kissing up to you, but that was probably my introduction to sci-fi, because I saw that in the theater, and I was young. I was probably 6 or 7 years old when it came out. So that was, I don't remember. I'm trying to remember if I saw anything before that, and I don't think I did. I think that was my introduction to sci-fi, and I was such a young kid and I loved it so much. I just was like, oh, I want to have these powers. I want to be, I want to be like, meet aliens, become one. And I think one of the first things when I first started speaking to you, how I mentioned to you how that movie held a special place, and it still does to this day, because I go back and watch that movie, every so often, and it still like brings me back to childhood.
Wow. Well, I'm honored. I'm totally honored, and I have to tell you, when I was putting my list together, of course, it's not on my list because I don't think of it in those terms. And then I thought maybe I should add it, and I thought I can't do that, because the thing and I've mentioned this to people before. The thing about that movie for me is I'm so much, of course, happier being in it than having had a chance to see it for the first time. But I never got to see it for the first time because I remember watching the screening at at Disney on the Disney lot, the cast and crew screening, and I was kind of bombarded and overwhelmed because I was being hit with images and that were putting me fresh back on the set, and I couldn't see it objectively as a film. And so I really had no idea if it was any good or not, or if anybody was really going to like it. And it's been extraordinary for me that it's impacted so many people. But when I try to look at it objectively, it was really a very different movie for Disney. And it had so many unexpected elements, and you get hit with the first one right away. When I catch that softball, I mean, it's like, comes in so fast that there's something going on here that just it builds really well, and no, I'm honored to be in the in the top
I don't
10.
think you
So,
can look at it objectively. I think, when every time you would see it, I'm sure a memory comes back instead of looking at a film separating yourself.
oh yeah, completely, which is why I have so many memories of working on the film, because I have seen it so many times. And of course,
Right.
I went to the theater and saw it, many times when it came out. And there was a break in time there until VHS tapes came out that I didn't get to see it. And
Mm.
then it came out in VHS and I watched it on that. And then it just started showing up like in syndication. It was on the Hallmark channel for years and it was constantly running. And so I'd bounce around, or somebody would say, hey, which mountain's on? And I'd just flip it on the TV and clean the house and let it run in the background. All of this exposure to it kept me very fresh in those memories. So I'm really grateful for that, because they're extensive, and I can't see an image from it, literally even a still image, without just putting myself right there.
But those are our number 10s. Okay,
All right.
let's move on. What's your number 9?
My number 9, Soylent Green.
That is on my list.
It is on your list. Okay.
Yes.
We'll find out where it places.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, good grief. Again, creepy. The creepiest, one of the creepiest endings of all time, in a way. It's a science fiction film parading as a crime drama, but it just, I don't know, it took me to a very weird place. And one of the things I find about films like this, and a lot of science fiction films, and is this dystopian, horrible future that we're facing.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And I think going back to 2001, that's not what's going on in that movie. It's not a, end of the world, humans have ruined everything, and now, there's some other thing that we don't know about in the future that's finally going to save us. It was in so many ways an optimistic science fiction film, and most of them aren't.
Yeah.
So I found it I just found it to be, again, creepy. And I guess creepy is probably going to be a word I use a lot, because that's I guess that's what I like. I like being creeped out in a smart way.
No, I would agree with you. There's some really intellectual scripts in sci-fi. I mean, you had some of the best writers, write this series, TV shows about it, and the movies. So many movies just make you think. And it's like you said, they stand for something else. It's always what's going on in your life, modern times, that they're able to put it into the sci-fi. But I'll get to my Soylent Green observations when I get it on my list.
Okay.
But number 9 for me, and I did not get to see this in the theaters, and a lot of my movies I did not get to see in the theaters, because I mean, for the most part, I was like a young kid there, and some of these movies are like, rated, rated higher than probably my parents would have taken me to.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, but number 9 for me, and this is Westworld. And Westworld, I'll say that I just like the idea. It just boggled my mind there, just thinking about it at the time, that, you go into the theme park and the attractions can kill you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, definitely it's on my list. I think obviously a little higher up than yours, but oh my gosh.
Have you seen the TV series?
I watched the first season.
Okay.
And I really liked it up until I think they went off the rails somewhere for me, from a storytelling standpoint. And towards the end of the first season, I didn't go past the first season because it kind of lost me. But I thought their approach was fantastic. I really liked the idea. I liked the way what they had set up, but I just felt like it got fragmented, and I don't know, they lost focus, and there were just a couple things that bothered me about it. But the original film, same kind of thing. That seemed like an amazing idea, for a theme park where you could really go in and and I mean, that's virtual
And
reality.
you're there, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
right.
not virtual reality, it's
Right.
reality. And
Yep.
and such an extraordinary concept.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll say with the TV show, I loved the first season. I mean, I thought the TV show blew away the movie. I look back fondly on the movie just because it was so fresh and new. But looking at it again, if objectively, I just think it's an okay movie. But I still love the concept of it. I thought the TV series did an amazing job. But then I found exactly what you said. I'm still watching it now. I've still watched the seasons, but I'm only watching it because I'm already invested in the characters and story. But I did think it jumped the shark. I think it went off the rails. And at the end of season 1, I was like, I cannot wait for season 2. Season 2 came and
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask because I wasn't sure if I was going to commit some time to watching the second season, but
I think they don't know where to go. I think that's the problem, that they did not know where to go with the stories anymore. But if they, I think ended season 1, it probably would have been talked about as one of the greatest series. And then now it's like diminishing as we're going on.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah,
I still try.
Look, I love long form. I love it that it's in its heyday now. But you got to plan it out. You've got to have your entire 10 episode or story arc before you really get started, because you got to know where everything's going. And I think this might not be accurate, but I thought I had heard that they didn't know where they were going to take the story after 4 or 5 episodes, and HBO decided to continue with it, and they had to scramble and figure it out. And I found, and that may or may not be true. It sort of feels that way, because I think, once you start, as a writer, once you stitch it together, and then you got to pull some threads out, and you can't go backwards when you're doing, a film project. You can't go backwards and then rewrite that beginning again and lay in what you need to lay in to get to the end game. So I think they had some story problems, and I would have liked it if they had actually planned it as a 10 episode, 1 season,
and then
it's going to end. Yeah, and be done with it, and wherever it goes. So
that was one of the few series that I'm sidetracking a little bit, but that was one of the series that there are certain series that when they come on, I'm all over the internet looking for theories and clues and what have you. I did that with Lost, and I did that with Westworld. Okay, let's here we go. Should I do a little drum roll? Number 8.
Yes, boom. The Man Who Fell to Earth.
You're gonna hate me as we go through this, but go ahead. Let's hear it.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay.
Another
very again, I saw this in the theater. It was very unexpected. I was intrigued, first of all, by the idea that David Bowie was even acting in something. I thought he was actually quite phenomenal as this, and quite a good pick. And without having to do much work at all, really did seem like he was from another planet.
Right. Well, that's his persona, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I loved the idea that he is on this mission to save his own planet, and in order to do that, he's got to put this major space project together, and the only way to do that is to fund it. The only way to do that is he's got all these patent ideas and this intellectual property that was really extraordinary, because one of the first things that he as a character develops and sells is instant film. Like it was way before, I think Polaroids probably were around, but the idea that you had the camera, it was the camera device was something you threw away and you just bought more film. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I can't remember. But some of these concepts I just thought were incredibly clever and really again, fed my imagination, because that's the kind of stuff I like to chew on.
I'll say this. I am going to mention, I won't talk about it too much now, but it will come up here, and then we'll probably have like a little bit of an argument. But let's see. So,
oh, I hope so.
So here's my number 8. My number 8 was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I thought this was one of those movies where the remake surpassed the original. And just the concept of they're hiding among us. That was one of the first times I saw that. And it really, that stuck with me. I saw that. I did not see that in the theater either. I saw that later on, like probably in my teens. But I really loved the movie. And, I thought Sutherland was great in that too.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it did not make my list. It's funny, that did not come up for me. And I think I probably didn't bring it in because it was a remake, as opposed to being an original, which is neither here nor there, because it was a really good film. And again, super, super creepy, with a super creepy ending. But yeah, I'm just completely in agreement with you that these pod people could be anyone and anywhere is incredibly unnerving. And I think that's what we're finding as we go along with these titles, that it's that unnerving nature of it that gets under your skin. And when it's well written and well crafted, and they achieve that goal, I think it's extraordinary, because it's a very different type of storytelling that has to be paid attention to.
And now that you mentioned, we're going to have to, at some point in the future now, it just thought of me as we're talking, we will have to discuss remakes that are better than the original in one podcast.
I think that's an awesome theme.
So here we go. Number 7.
All right. Number 7, Silent Running.
Oh, good movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have not seen it in decades. And I was I watched the trailer just to refamiliarize myself with some of the imagery. And I thought it was, again, the end of the world concept is brought out in it. But I think what moved me so much, and some commentator that I listened to watching one of the trailers, he's a filmmaker who was talking about his experience with the film. I had the exact same experience with the little drone. They call them drones. I think they were called drones. The little robots that were his companions. One of them, got destroyed in an event and blown away out into space. And I lost it in the theater. I started crying and weeping. And I couldn't even figure out why I'm crying, for a robot. But they managed to humanize these characters in this amazing way. And I kind of refer to them as the original R2-D2s, because they were little noise-making, animate robots that had great depth of character. And I thought that was very unusual for a science fiction film.
Can't even comment so much. I remember liking it. I don't think I've seen it since the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I remember liking it, but it's been so long since I've seen that movie. So,
I don't know how well it would hold up. And I was interested to note that it was directed by Douglas Trumbull, who was one of the special effects supervisors on 2001, and of course Star Wars and many other movies. That's his primary background. But I think he's directed a few things, and Silent Running was one of them. So, the sets look good. I think they did a good job there, but it's very much a dated sci-fi movie in my humble opinion.
There are a few out there that I love that are probably dated, but I don't care.
Yeah, well, no,
right. I'm not sure how they'd hold up today.
It's an observation, not a judgment.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, but there are certain movies that I know that I love that my kids look at and it's like, really?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But okay, so here's my number 7, which you've already mentioned, Soylent Green.
Uh-huh.
And I saw that later on also. I don't think, I don't think I saw that movie till I was probably even in my 20s. And
Ah,
so much after that it came out. And I had heard about it before I saw it. That's the thing. It was like a huge pop culture reference in many other TV shows and movies about it's people. That's the thing. So it had been mentioned so many times elsewhere that I said, "Oh, I have to see the movie." And I went in already knowing the ending, but I
right.
still thought it was well done. I thought Heston was fantastic in it. He had that trio of sci-fi movies back in the '70s, and but I did enjoy this one. There's another one that was, you know, not action, but it was a lot of fun. It was just, I watched it again recently, even, and I just think it's a fun movie.
Oh, I yeah, completely agree. I enjoy it. I think now I haven't revisited some of these films myself, but thinking I should have before the podcast, but now I think I probably will after the podcast. Now talking about them, it's getting me excited about them again. So there you go.
Okay, so let's move number 6.
All right. The Andromeda Strain.
Another good one. Yep.
Yeah. Um, I would say the things that I enjoyed about it the most, and I have watched it recently with my wife, who was on Facebook within 10 minutes of the film starting, just because she found it incredibly boring. It not a fun revisit, but I put it at like that number 6 level because I just thought it was so smart. I mean, it was just so possibly realistic, and that and I know, see, Michael Crichton wrote the script. It was directed by Robert Wise, who is an awesome director, and I thought he did a great job with it. But from a writing standpoint, I like, obviously Michael Crichton's huge, but I
Mhm.
really enjoy his efforts to base his fiction fantasies in as deep in an element of reality as he can. And I think it was just a very interesting way of showing what could happen if we really did discover, something like this from outer space.
Well, the Andromeda Strain, and I went over when I look at the '70s movies again, and I saw that. To me, it was just like so much like pandemic stuff. I didn't include
Well,
other
oh, you know
too close
what?
to
Now you
home.
reminded me. That's exactly why I picked it for.
Right.
Yeah, just because we were in the middle of this situation, or the beginning of this situation, and I found myself gravitating towards these
Right.
movies again, and so I made my wife sit through it, and she just had this look on her face like, oh no,
I'm
no,
dealing
no.
with this outside. I don't need to watch it on TV.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. Because I'll
Well,
tell you,
here,
from a
yep.
pandemic standpoint, I think the other story that I wish was a better movie, but I thought was a fantastic read, is World War Z.
Oh, we will get to that when we do that. Yes,
Okay,
I
okay.
love that movie too. I do love that movie.
We'll yeah, do that for another time. But
We're gonna have to do a zombie special.
yeah, I think so,
So
because I need to catch
yes,
up on zombie movies. I never was, I never got hooked into it, but now I love I love the,
there are some great
yeah,
ones. We'll
yeah.
have to discuss that. But
Okay.
all right, so here my number 6, and this is an odd one to choose here, and it's sci-fi. I'm telling you, it's sci-fi. The Boys from Brazil. so,
Ah,
so
yes. Okay. I haven't seen that since it came out. I barely remember the story, but I have a real life connection to it because I auditioned for that
oh,
film.
really?
Oh yeah, yeah, I did. I did. Yeah, it was interesting. I had to because see, now I've forgotten what the story is, so you can fill it in for me a little bit. But I know they needed either more than one. It
Clones
was
and
more than one
Hitler.
clones.
So
Yes, yeah,
right,
that's right.
right.
But they needed multiple accents from the actor who was going to play that character. So I hired a dialect coach to teach me. It was a German accent and a British accent, and that's how I did my audition.
Oh my gosh.
Clearly I wasn't chosen. I wasn't chosen for everything I, auditioned for, which is fine. But yeah, I remember hearing about it and finding it a disturbing idea, to say the least. So
Yep.
yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm looking at the movie in a whole new way now, knowing that you auditioned for it. Wow. but that was one of the movies that I was probably taken to before I should have by my dad. Okay. So
one of those.
One of those. I'll say, because my dad, was very into my dad was like, a history teacher. He did a lot of research for magazines and stuff based on the Holocaust. He interviewed, and he took me with him at the, to when he interviewed a lot of survivors. So there too. So I remember that, and I remember just going with my dad. So get one of those movies again that it resonates with me, because I remember sitting with my dad seeing that movie, but it was probably sooner than I probably should have. I was still a kid, and it scared me. It really scared me in the theater, and but just the whole concept about these Nazi scientists going around trying to recreate Hitler. So that did scare me, but I think it still, I watched it again probably a couple of years ago, and it still gets that creepy feeling, when seeing it.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Like I said, I haven't. I was like, I had an idea what the film was about, and I did go to see it. But it was a really long time ago, and I have not revisited that one.
And Olivier was great.
Yeah.
But and he's like the good guy in one, played the Nazi in the Marathon Man. So it's like,
yeah.
he showed definitely both sides of the spectrum. Okay, number 5.
Okay, number 5 for me is Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
That is on my list.
I don't doubt it. I'm just so interested to see where we place these things. But yeah, I have a variety of mixed reactions to it, which is probably why it's lower down on my list. That movie, there was so much anticipation around that movie that my friend and I had to wait in line for 2 complete screenings of it before we could get into the theater. I waited all day long. It was like 5 hours, and then got to see that movie. Mm-hmm. That was back in the day when those things happened, when lines went around the block. I mean, it was extraordinary. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really hasn't happened that much until the new Star Wars films came out, and then that started again. People camping out days in advance to see the first screening of whatever the first new one was. Anyway, but I was completely drawn into the film. I was a UFO reading child, any book I could read about them, and there seemed to be all this very, very interesting, horrific, chilling first person accounts of being abducted and what they saw, or thinking they saw people, or thinking they saw UFOs. So my brain was really full of this stuff, and I thought Spielberg did an awesome job pulling that collective nightmare out of the air and applying it to a film. But I have to say, what freaked me out about it, and Spielberg subsequently has made this same comment himself. He said he would have never written this script today, because essentially this father of 2 just leaves his family. Right. Like, gets on a ship and goes wherever. I mean, if it was just a standard drama, it's like, okay, bye guys, and I'm gonna get on this ship and go to Europe and go see what that's all about. And right. I don't know if I'll ever see it again, but it's whatever. It's just, I just found that it pulled me out, and as excited as I was for Richard Dreyfuss to get to fulfill this opportunity, it just like. It seemed very strange.
We're going to have to do a whole thing on all these topics coming up now, plot holes in certain movies too. But yes, that did bother me in that movie as well. but I mean, they did show the family being unsupportive. Not it's a reason to leave. I mean them, but I know they were like making fun of him that he was nuts, and
Yep.
they would stand by. So yeah, I mean, I overlooked that part, but yes, I agree with you. On, would have hated if my dad left just to go like, bye guys, take care.
Yeah. God, it was just yeah.
So here's my number 5 is Time After Time. And that time travel is did you audition for that?
No. I did not. Yeah, it's one that I enjoy, but I did not have it in my top 10 list.
Sci-fi. I love sci-fi. I love alien movies, but my favorite genre of it is time travel. And yeah, I thought this was like, a fantastic way to do it. H.G. Wells, Jack the Ripper. I thought this was, really fantastic. And I've watched that also several times. And I think that was one of the first movies when we got cable that was on it like all the time. So I got to see it.
Yeah, of course.
So that's what stuck with me. There were certain movies that were like in heavy rotation in the early days of cable, and that was one of them, I remember. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Oh yeah, and it's directed by Nick Myers, who directed Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan, and that was the film that got him the gig to do Wrath of Khan. I enjoyed it very much also, and I've seen it again not too long ago, and it still holds up in a really great way. I'm a Malcolm McDowell fan.
Yes.
Anyway, so I as they say, I could watch him read a phone book. It's just that he's that kind of guy. It's incredibly intriguing performer. But yeah, super smart concept. I have a hard time with time travel movies just because I don't know why. It's intellectually, there's a barrier for me with them. And, but this one worked. It worked,
We'll have to discuss that. So just following all the different threads in it. Is that what
Well, no, I mean, just the sheer impossibility of it.
Don't say that.
I can't get over that one hurdle. I can't get. It's like invisibility. I can't get over that one hurdle unless it's an out and out. See, this was a great fantasy, and I think that's why I liked it, because it was more fantastical than trying to. It's played in a real way, but not in a real way. And the fact that it is H.G. Wells and it is Jack the Ripper as who are real life characters, and H.G. Wells is a writer of these things, but then he actually gets to participate in it. I thought that's enough. That's pushing outside those boundaries enough for me to get on the ride and enjoy it. So that's, yeah.
I wrote a book and it did not sell, and I'm hoping it will one day, a time travel book with a descendant of H.G. Wells as the main character, as a kid. So I'm hoping it sells one day, but that's, I love that concept. So
awesome.
Hopefully that will sell. Okay, we are in the home stretch now. Number 4.
Well, quickly, we've covered it. Westworld. Yeah, I again, a universe that I just thought was beyond intriguing.
If you could go to Disney, let's say, which is the ride that you would scare you most if they came to life?
Wow, great question. Probably Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, which doesn't exist anymore.
It does in California, though. I heard.
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been to Disneyland in a couple decades.
I've never been. I wish I could, but I miss Mr. Toad.
Yeah. Oh no, that was always my favorite ride, but that would be pretty darn creepy if it came alive and started chasing me around.
I think either Small World, because those dolls are creepy.
Yeah. there's that. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. All right, here we go. Number 4 for me was Superman. And
yes.
I think I still enjoy watching that movie. I think still to this day, Christopher Reeve is the definitive Superman in my mind. It's just I don't think anyone's done it any better. And I don't know, for whatever reason, DC now has made all their movies very dark, and none of the fun that the original Superman movie had. Excuse me, none of the the whimsy in it. And Superman was never a dark character in the comic books, and so I thought this really captured it. And it's just fun. He's so. I mean, I get sad when I see Christopher Reeve, but it's still such a fantastic job.
Oh, I agree. It didn't make my list. It probably should have, because yeah, I completely enjoyed it also. I was not a comic book guy growing up, so I really didn't read that material to get a sense of what these characters would be like if you brought them to life. And I, as a person in the industry and an actor and a potential storyteller in the back of my mind, I always kind of wanted to one day write something or feel like I could write something. I was fascinated very much by superhero stories. And I think also, just as an audience member or a consumer, I'm someone who likes the origin stories. I like the origin story, and then move on. I don't get caught up in sequels with these characters too much. And I just thought that was a fantastic origin story, which goes back, I know, to the comic books. They were, I believe, mirroring very much everything that happened in terms of introducing Superman to the world. But what I think blew me away the most was the incredibly convincing job they did with his flying rig. I mean, it was just, again, back in the day before CGI and before they could throw wires all over you and digitally erase them. That's a very difficult acrobatic process to make look real. And they just made it look so real that I got completely lost in it and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I like the tongue-in-cheek aspect of Gene Hackman's character, and the whole outlandish idea of buying real estate on the state line of California and blowing up something, dropping it off into the. I mean, it was just hilarious. It was hilarious, but at the same time ludicrous and very comic book-ish in a way. I don't know what Lex Luthor.
Yes.
Yeah, what he was like in the comic books, but I just
not that, but yes.
I didn't think so.
No, but I thought it was like the superhero movie, even for like another 15 years or so, or 10 years at least, till the Batman one came out. But I thought that was the superhero movie.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Our top threes now. Let's now we're curious. Okay, number 3.
Okay, number 3 is Alien.
We have the same number 3. You and I.
Awesome. Yeah, boy, talk about much anticipated film. And I had to go look to make sure that it was in the 70s, because it was released in 1979. I didn't know if it bridged over to 1980 or 81. I couldn't quite remember. But by the time that film came out, well, it was so different and so dark and so promising, and the previews that I saw looked so fantastic that I could not wait to see it, and I was not disappointed. I just thought the production value was fantastic. I thought the idea was terrifying and plausible, because they, the thing for science fiction for me that's sometimes difficult is where the stories are set in time. They tend to make most stories a little bit too close to our time for them to be even reasonably plausible with all the technological achievements that you see played out in the movies. I like it when it's set further out, just further out, and its own kind of, like Star Trek. is the 23rd century. And, you know, that's so far away from us. Any of that stuff, as fantastical as it might be, could be plausible, because we just cannot imagine that far in the future,
We don't know
given
yet, right?
everything that we've done up to this point. So, you know, I have some problems with it, but I just thought it was absolutely the most tense, terrifying, exciting. I call them romps. It's a favorite word of mine, but romp. And it's just high on the list for me for you know, a number of reasons. But I think the storytelling as well as the production value, just, you know, it's something that you can again revisit over and over again, and it holds up.
Well, I love alien movies, and I mentioned, and all these movies that I've mentioned so far, for the most part, it's like, oh, these aliens are so nice. I wish I could meet one. They look great and so friendly. And then Alien was the first one that showed me, whoa, you know, it could be that side too.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be this other side of the coin.
I mean, yeah, a tiger is just a really big cat, you know.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, one you want to doe-eyed, you want to pet. The other one you better run fast. And yeah, so yeah, I get that. Absolutely, I get that.
It was definitely a scary movie. I loved it, and still, I want my daughter to see it now because she's really into these things. But this one to me will also fall under the sequel. Is even I loved Alien. The sequel was even better. You know, the second one I thought, but just a great series. Okay, here we go. Now let's go our top two. So here we go.
All right,
number two.
My number two is Star Wars.
There we go. I knew you were going to say it wasn't going to be number one.
Well, because I sort of showed my hand.
Up. Right.
Yeah, I showed my hand there. But my gosh, well, you know, what hasn't been said about Star Wars? You know, what younger people who've experienced it, who didn't get a chance to see it in the movie theater, don't know is again, you talk about anticipation. It was one of the first movies, and I believe this is somewhat accurate, that they started to advertise it further in advance than any other movie had been, because a friend of mine and I went to go see a movie at a local theater. It was on a Saturday night, like we did, and it must have been an afternoon. I was probably too young really to go out on my own at night. But anyway, we're in the theater and they start to roll trailers, and this boom thing comes on. And the Star Wars trailer was so well cut, and it was so indicative of what was to come, that for the very first time in my movie going experience, when that trailer ended, everyone in the theater, including me, just spontaneously jumped out of our seats screaming.
Wow.
And then they show the clip that says coming to a theater next summer. And we were like, no, you can't make us wait a whole bloody year. We can't stand it. It was just, we went back to the movies just to see the trailer again.
Wow.
Because that was the only way you could experience it. You know, you none of those other options online, you know, there was no online. There was no other way to see these things. And it just absolutely got my blood rushing like no other trailer I'd ever seen. So obviously by the time I got to see it, I was overwhelmed, incredibly excited. It was and it was just like, oh my gosh, yes, finally another science fiction film. And it first of all think out with the greatest opening line ever, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And I don't think people think about that little nugget that much, but that allowed Lucas to tell anything he wanted to tell, because he didn't have to tie it to you know, like human social order as we know and experience it here on Earth. There's no Earth in that series. It doesn't exist. So that I just thought it just kind of blew my head open. And I thought, holy cow, this is where you can go with this kind of stuff. Aside from all the other obvious fun aspects to it. But oh my gosh, it was just getting to see that for the first time on a big screen. And the effects were so well done. Just the art direction was extraordinary, and it looked great up there. It just did.
Well, since we only have two movies left, I'll go out of order because that is my number one.
Yeah.
But we're at a time, and you said it was a much different time. No social media, and I feel like stupid saying this. I didn't know anything about it before it came out, and I don't even know who had this whole word of mouth thing going on like now. There's nothing like now. I remember my father took us, my sister and I, to see it because he had already seen it with he was a teacher, so he saw it with some students. And so he said, you'll like this. And I don't even think that I had a desire to see it. When I got into when the theater is going, my jaw drops and like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. This is incredible. I wanted to see it again, like right away. As soon as it ended, I wanted to stay and see it another time. And I had never seen anything like that. And I think that was the movie. And there were others that came along the same decade, but that was the movie that brought sci-fi out of this is the group of people that like sci-fi to everyone can like these type of movies.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It instead of the fringe, now it's mainstream. And Star Wars changed, like you said, the people just going to see the trailer, like you saw the trailer. I think Star Wars changed the way we go see movies. Jaws did to an extent, but Star Wars really made it, this is a thing.
Yeah. Oh man, absolutely. And I think the thing about Star Wars, I don't know about any great movie or any great story. And I remember, learning this very simple lesson when I was essentially teaching myself screenwriting, reading story structure books, and Robert McKee's Story was my Bible for that. But that you want to try to reach the widest audience possible. So going with the traditional, hero's journey conventions really work when you do them cleverly. And this isn't it. This almost just begs the little discussion: is Star Wars really a science fiction movie? Because it plays more to me like a Western. It actually feels more like a Western than it does science fiction. And it breaks the sci-fi convention right away, saying it happened in the past and somewhere else instead of in the future, which most of science fiction is, unless it's a contemporary sort of horror thing. So, but it's like it is the perfect hero's journey. And all of those beats play out. I mean, if you look at them, you can find every single one in that movie. And so it wouldn't have mattered if it was a surfer dude, going on some other journey. I think the story would still have that kind of an appeal. But yes, the fact that it gets, because it was so exciting and you're carried so along with Luke's adventure in such an effective way, it crossed right over into those people who wouldn't normally watch a space movie enjoy Star Wars,
right?
And I think that's
I've heard many people say what you just said, comparing it to the old Westerns. And I could see it looking at it now. I didn't even think about that then, but yes.
Yeah. Well, I didn't either. It took a lot of time because I was caught up in, what I enjoyed about the sci-fi aspects of it. I didn't think of it that way at all. It took some time and examination before I came to that kind of conclusion about it. But gosh, it's just, as an audience member, I love having had the opportunity to see these movies for the first time. And that one I was definitely, set up
Yes.
for in a huge way that was well worth it, man. It just, gosh, just the sheer tension of waiting a whole year was just incredible. And the payoff was great. It could have really been awful and it would have been so disappointing, but
Right.
the payoff, the payoff was huge. And yeah, the rest is history.
Well, now I have number one now, because now I'm trying to picture what it is that hasn't been said. What is the number one? So,
Well, hey, what was your number two?
uh,
See, we didn't get.
Well, Star Wars was my number. Star Wars was my number one. I just went out of order. Great talking with you. Star Wars was my number one. My number two was Close Encounters.
Okay. So there you go. Got it. Okay.
Yes. So Close Encounters, like you've already said, just I just, that brought me another thing. Like, wow. And I always believed in aliens, and there are other people like me out there obsessed. And again, these are friendly aliens to boot. And I just, this was incredible, just an incredible piece of filmmaking. And the horrible dad aside, but
right.
I
forgive it that. Yeah, I forgive it that.
And the image of the Devil's Tower, just everything about that movie was, and the humor. There was so much humor in it too. I love that movie.
Yeah,
I still watch. That's one that I'll still watch every year or two. I'll still pop that one in. So,
well, I'll really have to justify my number one. It's THX 1138.
Really? Okay, let's hear.
Okay, first of all, have you seen it?
Yes, I have seen it, but that's another one I have not seen since I saw it. So,
yeah. Well,
since the first time, yes.
I saw it when it came out. I was 10 years old when the commercials came on television. It just looked so fascinating. And I told my mom, I want to go. My father wouldn't go see it with me. Because I think it might have been rated R at the time. I'm not sure. But
really?
Yeah, it was either, movies were either G or R. There was no PG. Maybe they had PG. There was no PG-13. That came in later. But
right.
my going back to my imprint from 2001, and so desperate to see a really interesting, serious science fiction film again. When I saw it, even at 10 years old, I was riveted and fascinated. And in my very strange, humble opinion, think that THX 1138 is one of the best science fiction films ever made, simply because it fulfills all the most extreme dystopian idea. And of course, I learned about this later, and I've not read Brave New World, but the idea that, so many science fiction films are about control of society. You got Soylent Green is very much that way. Mm-hmm. There's something is definitely upside down about them, and that that the human race had to live underground because the surface of the earth had been scorched by our bad behavior. And in order to control people in this incredibly claustrophobic, antiseptic environment, everyone is on forced medication. That it's against the law not to be drugged up. And that that Robert Duvall's character, the THX, fights the system by not taking drugs and becoming aware of where he is. That's like waking up in an insane asylum. Where you just, all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I am trapped in this. And it's by my own volition, is such a extreme idea to me that I found it fascinating. And thinking, how is this guy going to get away? He's running from, he can't get away. There's no way he can get away. And then he erupts out, at the very end on the surface of the planet, And, you know, you're left thinking, okay, maybe he will survive. Maybe it's not. Maybe we don't really know what happened and why everyone has to live underground. We don't really know. And it's not explained. You know, there's no exposition in this movie to give you any idea of why everyone is functioning in this way. There's a lot of very strange things about it, and some things that don't make sense. But I thought Lucas actually wrote some incredibly smart ideas for how, you know, things that you just see. And as a film, I like again, I like visual stuff. There are moments in the film that I think are so successful, and one of them, and this is an odd thing to bring up, but there's an audience of people watching a sporting event, some kind of sporting event that you don't see, you only hear it, and you hear this and you see faces turning back and forth, and it's this very odd sound of something be going back and forth between players, and you have no idea what it is. You just see them looking back and forth, and you realize, oh my gosh, he didn't have to show us what this otherworldly, you know, activity was. Our imaginations could fill in the blanks for it. And so for me, it's full of kind of moments like that made me really appreciate it. I think I think for a lot of people, an underrated work of art. It's a very uncomfortable film.
I feel like I'm going to have to go back and watch this again, because I've not seen it since probably my teens, and so I probably need to go watch it again.
Well, it's funny. I don't know that you can find the original version anymore, because Lucas did that. He did the same thing with that film that he did with, you know, A New Hope, where he
hate that.
He pulled it and digitally inserted stuff into it and then re-released it. If you can find the original, because see, again, I think that's one of my complaints about Lucas, and I don't know where he went off the rails, but one of the things that made Star Wars so successful, and I thought THX 1138 so successful, and it's for every artistic pursuit, if you have free reign, you just run amok. You need it to be contained. And the more limitations you have, I think the harder you work creatively and the better art comes out of it. But I think George got into a place, especially with the subsequent Star Wars films, where, you know, he had all the money in the world to do whatever he wanted, and none of it was any good.
Right.
Yes. A lot of people, even back when Star Wars first came out, a lot of people actually credit the success of that film on his wife at the time.
I've read that. Yeah.
Because she was a film editor. Yeah. And they ended up divorcing and never worked together again. And so I felt like he had a balance there. He had someone to say, no, George, don't do that.
This is not working.
We need to do this. Don't do that. Because she also cut THX 1138, I believe.
Well, so since we're just talking about the things he changed, we'll just agree that Han shot first, right? So
yeah. Yeah.
Instead of the changes he made later on, which were terrible for that. Okay. Wow. So I'm gonna. All I know about, really, I see the THX, the 1138, is that Pixar puts it all into all their movies, because they all took it. That was the room that they all studied in or something.
Oh, so okay.
That's somewhere in all their movies you'll see those numbers, because that's where they learned filmmaking in. So, which is why Lucas called it. All right. So what movie just missed? What movies just missed your top 10?
Just missed Slaughterhouse 5.
Another good one. Okay.
Yeah. And Mad Max.
Mad Max is another good one. Yes.
Yeah. Mad Max just didn't make it because it was, for me, again, love the idea, love the story, but it was so poorly made because they redubbed the entire movie, including Mel Gibson with American actors, and it just felt like a foreign film, you know, that was with poor audio quality. It was weird. It was very weird to me. But of course, the subsequent Road Warrior was phenomenal for me, and we'll cover that probably another episode. But yeah, Slaughterhouse-Five. It's a movie I love. It was a little hard to rewatch because it's just sort of so tragic on so many levels. But it is a time travel movie,
Yeah.
It really is. Even if you're just bouncing back, and he was bouncing back and forth in his own life, but uplifting ending, but not so, for me, traditional science fiction, that I just thought it fell just off the list.
I think my two that are off are Star Trek, the first one, just because it brought me back to Star, and I loved Star Trek, so it brought me back into the world again. So I think, looking back, I know that a lot of people, there were a lot of detractors for the original motion picture one.
No, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of it. I enjoyed it. I really did.
I did like it. It's not starting with number two, that we'll get to another time, that it big jump in quality, but I still like the original motion picture one just because it brought me back into that world.
Yeah.
And Black Hole, and I loved it just because I was a kid at the time, and that was Disney's attempt at Star Wars, and I still have a fondness for it. So I mean, yeah, it's not a great movie, but I still have a fondness for it just because I remember it from a kid, and I have watched it again.
That's that's fair enough. I will not judge you for that at all.
So now here's we're gonna fight. What's your overrated movie?
Overrated. Okay. God, that's just really tough. That's really, I probably Close Encounters, just for the reasons I talked about, because I felt like that was such a and I feel this way about Jaws also, because I was one of the few people that watched Jaws, even though I love the movie, and I've watched it many times since. I was one of the few people in the theater that saw that rubber shark come out of the water and said, "Are you freaking kidding me? It's a big rubber shark. Look, its teeth are flopping around." I mean, it's not even close to realistic looking, especially when they had shots of it, not close to, but the real shark. So there were things about that movie that I thought there's no way this is going to make any money. I mean, who's going to believe this? And then with the big, scuba tank in his mouth, swimming on the surface, that is perfect for him to shoot with his rifle to blow him up. I mean, to me, that was like the worst form of manipulation I've ever seen. And yet it's one of the biggest movies of all time. So
I'm not sure it's fun to, it's fair with you because you can look at the stuff behind the scenes that a lot of people can't.
Well, probably, that's fair to say. I do look at it that way, and those things will pull me out of a movie, which, the truth be told, if it's a good, exciting story and well done, for goodness sakes, the effects in Escape to Witch Mountain are not exactly top notch. They only could take them so far on for the low budget film that it was, and they actually cleaned them up a lot more in the DVD later version. Because gosh, it's like, but if you're caught up in the story, those things can be forgiven. And so that's where I would say Close Encounters perhaps is overrated because of that thing for me. But I don't know. See, even overrated with this list, it's hard for me to I think most people would say, who have a problem with Star Wars would say it's overrated, but I don't think so. So that's the best I can do. How about you?
Here's where we'll fight now, probably. The Man Who Fell to Earth. For me, that's why. Well, I'll say that before. The reason why, and I've only seen it once, and I went back and looked at the trailer again, for this. For this, I love David Bowie, and I think later on he did some, really good movies and stuff. I thought the acting was atrocious. I could not get into it. Not just by him. I thought by like everyone. It was so, above overacting. And even the music to me felt like, felt like, it was like the dun, 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 just everything, getting it extra, over dramatic, music to it. And then of course the ending, after all that, I at least want, a decent ending. And I didn't get that either from this. So
no, I'll buy all of that completely. I just think, again, it's down at number 8. I just liked the idea, and I just thought, I think that more than anything, and I probably just enjoyed David Bowie more than anything else. But that's a film I've not revisited in a very long time, so I'm going with that more youthful impression that I had when I first saw it, and I know I've seen it at least a couple more times, but it's been a long time.
And I love Bowie in Labyrinth. I love Bowie in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. But but that's it. Anyway, those are our top 10. I'm banging on the desk, which I shouldn't, but those are our top 10. And we hope you all enjoyed listening to it. And we'd love to hear your comments. Do you agree, disagree? Let us know. Let us know by all means.
Yeah, please share. And I hope you enjoyed it too.
And thank you for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. This has been Pop Culture Retro, and hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.